There's been a lot of injury news for the Bombers over the last couple of days, but today the official injury list is out. We're going to have a look at it and assess what it means for the coming weeks right now in this video. So let's go through the players. First of all, Jordan Ridley. He's a test this week. So Jordan Ridley, we do need him back pretty badly. One of our better players. Obviously, he's been a very injury-prone player over the last couple of years. When you do injure yourself, it does make yourself more likely to re-injure yourself. It's just the nature of doing an injury, especially when it's these soft tissue injuries. But all reports are he has trained pretty well. I would probably say he's 60-40-ish, maybe 65-35 to play. All the reports mostly that he will play. Zac Reid in a similar situation. So the reports are that Zac Reid did train pretty well, also with a hamstring injury. So with Ridley and Reed, I think worst case scenario is one plays and one doesn't. I don't think we'll have a situation where neither of them play. I don't think that's going to happen. I think worst case is one plays, one doesn't. And best case scenario is that both of them play. I don't want to be taking any undue risks with them. I'm sure you guys don't either. But if he's right to go, you're right to go. And that's just the way it is. And I think there's a pretty good chance. I think of the two, I think Reid is probably the most likely to come in. But if I had to make a prediction, I reckon both come back in the side. That would be my prediction. Mason Redman, hamstring injury. He will be another week away. He went for precautionary scans after noting hamstring awareness after the session on Saturday. And he was cleared of any strain, but he won't be available for selection this week. He will most likely be playing next week against Richmond. I suppose this is good news. When you heard that it was a soft tissue injury to Redman, you thought, oh God, here we go, another 3 to 4 week injury. But it looks as though that's not the case, and he'll be back for the game against Richmond. And we really need to get our back line back together just for the cohesiveness of it, if for nothing else. And Redman obviously is a key part of that. Redman and El-Hawli, also, much like Zac Reid and Jordan Ridley, is a test for this week. He is recovered from his hamstring strain. It's just a matter of whether he is right to go. Now, once again, you don't want to take risks with this sort of stuff. Once you've done your hamstring, there's all sorts of scar tissue and things like that, and it's easier to re-injure it. He's a young player, so he'll be a chance to resume this week. I would anticipate he will most likely come in via the VFL. I think that's probably the most likely entry point for him this week. But you never know. He could come in via the main team, but I would suggest coming in via the VFL is probably more likely. Jaden Nguyen is 1 week away. He had a stress fracture in the foot. Those are nasty injuries. Similar sort of thing to what James Hird had back in the day. He's 1 week away, yet to make his AFL debut, obviously, and he will no doubt resume via the VFL when he comes back in. So Darcy Parish, as reported over the weekend, Darcy Parish suffered injuries in the club's early morning session. Parish, they've been careful with him all year, but he noted discomfort following the session, and he had follow-up scans, and it's confirmed that he had a minor strain to his calf. So he's listed as to be confirmed. We don't know. To me, that sounds like 3 to 4 weeks. So I don't know why the club hasn't put a time frame on it, but it just looks like it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks. And really with Parish, it's almost as good as season done in a way, because then you've got to come back. He's probably going to come back through the reserves for a game. Then he comes back into the seniors, and it takes him 1 or 2 games to get back into the swing of things. And then there's only 1 or 2 games left. So it's essentially season done, and that will obviously raise questions about his value. Obviously, he's on a 6-year contract. What do you do with a player on a 6-year contract on $600,000 a year or more, who's injury prone? Obviously, at his best, he's a very good player for us. I do rate him. I think at his best, he's good. It's just that he can't get on the park. What do you do with him? Do you put the feelers out there for a trade? Well, you probably put the feelers out there. I'm of the opinion that any player is tradable, with the possible exception of Nate Caddy. But in theory, anyone's tradable if depending on what you get from the other side of the equation. But I don't think other clubs are going to be prepared to take on that contract. So we just need to get him right, I think, and just make sure he's ready to go for next year, because I think he'll be with us on that contract. I don't think other clubs are going to want to take that on. So we just need to make sure we absolutely 100% get him right, because, the value that we've invested in him in terms of money and time as a high draft pick himself is that we just want to make sure we get the most out of his career. Because you know what's going to happen, guys? If he goes to another club, he's probably going to play 22 games and then be a really good player for them. And you just don't want that to happen. We want to make sure he plays his best football with us. And I know what the argument would be. The argument would be, well, he's not playing our best football with us. He's injured. But look, I just don't think other clubs are going to want to take on that kind of contract, that kind of money on an injury-prone player. We just need to make sure that we get him right. Kyle Langford also re-injured a quad in the same way that he did it during the Richmond game, going for a kick. He is also to be confirmed. They've, he was sent for scans over the weekend. It confirmed a quad strain. So all the club has said it will delay his return by several weeks. So look, several weeks. What's that? 3, 4, 5 weeks, something like that. Similar to Parish, it's basically season over. He might be ready to come back for the last couple of games, but right, he's barely played now this year when you think about it. So very similar situation to Darcy. He will be out for a similar length of time and ready to resume, with a couple of weeks to go. If you're ready to come back with 1 or 2 weeks to go, my advice, not that they'd be listening to me, but I think the best thing to do is to put the player on ice for the year and make sure you get them 100% right. What's the point playing him for the last 2 games, especially if you can't make the finals? There's no point. You might as well, get them into rehab and just get them 100% right if you think that they're going to be a contributing player to the side next year. Nick Cox, concussion, nothing has changed with Cox. He obviously went to that AFL, what do you call it, the meeting, the same thing that Jeremy McGovern went to, where they analysed players who have concussion injuries and recommended that Jeremy McGovern had to retire. Nick Cox is not at that stage, but I don't think he'll play for the rest of the year. Obviously, high draft pick. Once again, you want to, no one's going to want to take him on. He hasn't proven himself at AFL level in any way that other clubs are going to be, wanting him for anything that we can, they're not going to give up a second round pick or anything like that for a player like Nick Cox. So once again, you want to make sure you get him right, and hopefully he can have a go at it. Or at the very worst, he might have to retire at season's end. We'll find. I'd love to see him have another go at it, obviously, because he's a high investment, top 10 pick, and you just want to make sure that you exercise all avenues before the player is retired or before the player is moved on. And he's still young, or young-ish. And I'd love to see him just get it all right over the preseason and have one more go at it before we make a decision on him at the end of perhaps 2026. Harrison Jones and Ben McKay both have similar situations. Harrison Jones, of course, with that ankle injury. Ben McKay with a foot. Ben McKay, it's generally regarded as about a 6-month injury. These foot plantar plate things, they're pretty serious, obviously, because he's a elite athlete and they're dealing and you're getting professional rehab. He might be able to be back a little bit sooner than that, but I think it will be season over for him. The reason they have to be confirmed for both these players is that neither of them can run yet. And until they can run, you can't really get a time frame on when they're going to return. So Harrison Jones has hurt his ankle. I remember rolling my ankle in a very similar way quite a few years ago, and I was on crutches for a while, and until you can actually start running, then you really can't put a time frame on it. So, look, Ben McKay won't play for the rest of the year. Harrison Jones, similar to Langford and Parish, if he does play, it'll be towards the end of the year. You might as well just put him on ice and get him right for the following season. There's not really much point taking silly risks with these players. And that is it. Apart from that, the only other players on the injured list are the 4 players who are out for the season. Sam Draper with an Achilles, Lewis Hayes, Nick Bryan and Tom Edwards, all with ACL injuries. That is the official injury list. Let me know what you guys think. Do you have any views on it? What do you think we should do with the players who are sort of on the... Because to me, the interesting question here is not so much the Ridleys and Reeds and Redmans, who will all be back either this week or next week. The interesting question is, what do you do with Langford and Parish and Jones and maybe McKay, but certainly Langford, Parish, Jones, all of whom will probably be available to return later this year. What do? Do you play them or do you put them on ice? I'm probably of the put them on ice category, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I read all the comments and I try to reply to everyone. So make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. If you do that, it will help the YouTube algorithm. It will ensure you don't miss a video. It doesn't cost any money to do so, and it only takes a second to do it. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. Have a great day, everybody. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, go Bombers.